All right, so here's where we're at. This is the Coyote, of course, and we're going to get ready to put this on. So I punched in the pilot bearing already, and then now I have the flywheel here getting ready to get prepped and put in. So I was just checking and making sure I had all my bolts and everything. And so once we get this guy in, then of course clutch and everything goes on. What we're thinking is we're going to put the whole transmission and motor in the engine at once. So if you look over here, the K-member is already hooked to the motor mounts, and the motor's so it's strapped to the K-member. So we're thinking, what I'm thinking is I'm going to have this, if you look, I have it on a rolling kind of furniture dolly, and I have another one I'll probably hook it to as well. So what I'm thinking is I'll lift the car up and just roll this kind of roughly into place underneath it, then lower the car as best I can and hook up the K-member. So what I can do is once I have it under the car, I can lower the car enough to where I can get the hoist in the front here and lift up the engine. So if it's too low, I don't have to get too low. I can just lift it up, and then I can put my K-member bolts in and everything and go from there. So that's the plan. I'll try to record as much of it as possible. Obviously, I can't really talk through everything because we're kind of working it actively, but I'll talk through whatever I can now, or at the end if anything changes. Like I said, I'll try to get as much footage as I can at the middle. So stay tuned, guys, and I'll let you know how it goes. All right, so starting to put the clutch and flywheel on. So flywheel's on, bolts are bolted down. I think they're bolted down to 177 inch-pounds plus 60 degrees, but as I always say, check that for yourself before actually bolting it down, just to be safe. I don't want to misguide anyone. So next, of course, we're going to use our little alignment tool to keep everything nice and aligned. And so, if you're not familiar with how this goes, basically we'll come to this side, drop this guy in. And if you see it, you have to get the right tool. I'll have it linked below, but it's grooved to match, basically to mimic the input shaft. And so there's grooves on this guy, if you can see. And so it's grooved to mimic the input shaft. And so basically it'll sit right in this hole and keep this aligned while we put the outer piece on. All right, so now with the clutch, flywheel, and pressure plate bolted in, our next step is just to put on the transmission. So here we go. All right, so you may have seen I tried it and it didn't work. So what I'm thinking the best way to do this is actually just to take the headers off, or at least one side, so I'll be able to just get in there and get clean access. So I'll probably lift the engine up a little bit and drop the K-member if I need to get these headers off. All right, so I took the right header off, and I'm hoping now I can just come in with the transmission and kind of slide in and put it in position and hope I don't have to take both off. So that's our plan, so we'll try that now. guys, so the engine is in place. Now I'm just gonna lower the car on top of the engine and trans. And so obviously I'm going down slow just to make sure I have the right clearances. And so I have this on like a furniture dolly, like a little cart. And so as I need to, I'll push it one way or forward or backward just to make sure I get the right adjustments necessary and everything lines up. As far as getting the trans and everything on, I think my battery died, but I had my dad come over and help me. We took off one of the headers and kind of just put the transmission on and bolted it down. So then we put the whole assembly, transmission, engine, and K-member on this cart that you can kind of see here. Basically, it's one of these. We thought we might need two. So it's one of these. And so we put it on that cart, lifted the car up, rolled it in, and then now I'm lowering it on top. And I have the hoist in case I need to pick it up and move it any. Once I get it in, I probably will pick up on the engine a little bit just so I can square the K-member free of like the weight of the engine. So I'll probably use this to lift the engine up and help me do that. But yeah, so here we are. We're pretty much in there. Now I just have to make sure, you know, as I'm coming down, I'm not hitting any of my stuff like this AC line, for instance. I'll probably pop this guy off. It's actually on a bracket there. So I'll probably pop that off. Put this in here. We can see the steering column and stuff in the back there. So I have to make sure those clearances are good as I'm lowering. So it's gonna be a lot of stopping, lowering, positioning, repositioning, stopping, lowering and stuff. So, but the engine is in, almost. I'm just gonna hook up the K-member bolts and everything, and we should be in there. So what I have to do also, once I get in there, is I'm gonna have to see where the new manual transmission lines up. Then we have to lower it back down and cut out, I think I'm supposed to have to cut out that opening a little bit more. So shouldn't be much, but I'll show you guys what I do. Other than that, we should really be good. As far as power to the power distribution box, I'm actually gonna rerun the cable, kind of tuck it through here and around, and it'll be loomed so it won't be visible, but it'll be kind of around this trans tunnel and come out here to meet up with the power cable at the starter. And that's for both the power that goes here as well as the trigger cable for the so if you look at this trigger cable here, this is for the ignition for when to turn over the starter. So that's this wire here that connects to this connector. So I also have to run that over to the starter as well. So I think I need more cable for that. So I took it out and I'll find some. If I can find some with the, you know, the same color outside, I will. Otherwise I'll get something else that's identifiable just for in the future reference if I ever have to trace them down. But it's going straight to the starter, so it should be pretty obvious what it's for. But yeah, this is where we're at. Now we're just gonna lower the car and line everything up. All right, so now we have the K-member tightened in. These don't quite line up, but I'm gonna have to go on the other side anyways to get everything positioned over there. So once I do that, the rest of this will probably line up. Down here, these aren't lining up perfect, but also I can lower the body. So I kind of have the engine jacked up at an angle to get it, just to get these holes aligned. And so now I need to go over to the other side and pretty much do the same thing. So since it's just one person, what was happening was the engine and K-member were sliding forward as the car was lowering. And so I just used the hoist to lift the engine up. You can see it's at an angle. And then I used the jack to kind of hold it in place once I got it where I wanted. And then I put my bolts in, started them, and ran them in with the impact. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side now. So a little crank over there with the AC and the air compressor. So I'm not going to film that. But basically it'll be the same thing. Then we'll come back once that side's done as well.